So you said you'd have a bourbon if you were in the pub with me. So I poured myself a Long Branch, which is one of my favorites. It's a wild turkey product that, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew McConaughey is the spokesman or something for it. So
Well, if anything happens to him, I'm sure you can take his place.
there you go. Yeah, yeah. A little grayer and heavier. If he needs me to kick down a door, I can do that probably better than him. So
It's good to be with
so
you.
so Ron, one of the things is we just ask people to introduce themselves to those in the pub. So who is Ron Huntley?
Yeah. Uh, I'm what am I? I'm a lot of things. I'm a husband and a father. Uh, I'm born and raised in the Catholic Church, and always been an important part of my life. Somebody who's, for some reason, and to be honest with you, I'm not quite sure why, but my faith in Christ has always been really important to me. Um, and it's actually been the central part of my entire life and my entire existence. And I haven't always done a good job living it out, but yeah. So I've done a lot of work I went to school, live in Halifax, Nova Scotia, and worked in finance and then pharmaceuticals, and then in the church world, and then helped found a ministry called Divine Renovation. I understand Father James has been your guest at one point.
Yep.
And I launched the coaching arm of our ministry. And then almost 5 years ago, I stepped away and continue to do the same things I've always done and coach parishes and bishops and speak. And we've got some courses. And so, well, I'm a man that tries to live for Christ in every way I can and has fun in the process. Yeah.
Well, and I was just on the phone with somebody from Tennessee this morning that was talking about that influence of supporting parishes and how important it is because well, even our own pastor is reforming or reshaping the church as we know it or the way it works because like we have 54 ministries and quite often they end up being silos of
Yeah.
like entities within a city where we he likens it to we're all part of one body that you can't live without the hand and you can't live without the foot and the leg, without crippling yourself. And it's
Yeah.
so I forgot to ask you what you're drinking.
Yeah. So for Christmas, my wife got me this beautiful glass that kind of just spins on the wooden
Oh wow.
coaster, and she's got me those dice that you put in the freezer, and so it doesn't water down your drink. And so my drink of choice today is Canada Dry sugar-free ginger ale.
There you go. Okay.
I have to do
And
some
that,
editing tonight, so got to be
yeah,
on my
no,
game.
and that's, yeah, it's
You
that's
know,
why
Sean,
we
I
only have a
just wanted to
dram, just a
comment
little bit.
on what you said with your pastor and that we're all one body, and this just came to me for the first time as even as I'm listening to you, it just struck me. It's like, I get the one body thing, and I also understand the silo pieces that can happen in churches and how that leads to disunity and a lot of camps. And I also think to myself, for most churches as well as dioceses, you almost have two options: let everybody do anything they want, or everybody reports to the pastor. And what most people don't understand is how important structure is to organizations. And if we use the one body thing, we don't walk around with a unitard on over our head. And I mean, I guess you do that if you're doing some green screen shooting for special effects for movies. But most people wear a pair of pants, they wear a shirt, they have a hat and gloves if in the wintertime or what have you. And it's almost like each of those pieces of clothing covers a particular body. In essence, that could be the structure. And so what happens in most churches is the structure is we don't even we don't even tackle it. We don't even know how to tackle it. We don't even know that we should tackle it.
Yeah.
And until we tackle it, it's really hard to mobilize competent people in areas of influence. And as a result of that, we often have the wrong people in the wrong seats of the bus way too long. And churches just stagnate because if you're fortunate enough to be on mission and doing evangelization, when new and competent people come into the church and they try to get involved and they see incompetent people in leadership roles, they'll back away because they're not dumb, and they'll get involved in other things. And churches that are busy, like, wonderful, but are we fruitful? And we're not going to be sustainably fruitful unless we have a leadership structure that's aligned for mission, and we have the right people in the right seats on the bus. And so it's interesting as I work with different dioceses and parishes, because there's some principles around organizational structure and culture that are really critical to sustainable fruitfulness. And it's confusing if you're a pastor, because nowhere in their theological training do they get any leadership training anywhere. And there's no specific leadership training once people leave the seminary. And so if you're a good leader and you're a clergy, that is God's grace alone, because we've not tackled it as a skill set that we can confer onto others and help them skill up. It's not their
Yeah.
fault, but
And
it's awfully confusing for people, and it breaks my heart.
and that's where, so we're in the midst of a diocesan renewal here, and slash parish renewal. So each parish has been asked to have a look at their parish in the light of renewal. And our parish, we had our pastor who was had to go on leave, and and so we were left without a pastor, which made a very interesting perspective for us, because how do you keep a parish going? Like, and that structure that you talk about is so important, because it left a lot of gaps. And well, and even the guy I was talking to this morning on the purpose and mission of church, that doesn't always get communicated well as to, or understood well as to where we're going. And you probably know Father Sean Winger, who like he was we had a great visit one day, and he was talking about a homily he did on bringing somebody from outside the church inside the church and moving them along to or activated disciple, missionary disciple, whatever term you want. And what I've noticed is our church has gaps all along the way of moving people towards that missionary disciple, activated disciple, because we're our old RCIA was okay. It's Easter. We'll have a couple more meetings. And here's the keys. Let me know if you need anything. And we leave them, and they're just starting their journey, right? So, and how many others are in the pews that have never been catechized or evangelized, and what comes first? And so you're in an interesting world for sure.
Yeah, it's tricky. Again, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on it, and so it can be hard to lead a bunch of people who have opinions and perspectives, and they're not the same. A lot of times people don't even have the same language or framework, and so we can have very passionate people who are very faith-filled with good intentions, using church words and saying things different, like meaning different things, and so we just talk around each other and we talk over each other, and we don't have intelligent conversations. So it's a little bit like the Tower of Babel. It's like we've all been given a different tongue, working on the same project, but we don't speak the same language, even though we use the same words. And we put together a missional health assessment for parishes to help combat that exact issue. And it's just an assessment that people will do online. It's free, and it just tells them if their church is aligned for mission, moving forward, stagnant, or dying. And as soon as you're finished the assessment, it sends you out a breakdown so that it will help you understand what that looks like with respect to the 5 different systems of healthy parishes, as well as some skills that people learn for missional momentum. And so to that end, it really helps because we define the different terms so that at the very least we have a common framework and a common language. Now people can choose to change it, but at least it's a starting point. Aww.
What? You're freezing up a little bit on me, but you're doing fine. As you know, this captures the recording, and but yeah, that's very interesting, and thought provoking at the same time. Like, you don't do a parish wide survey, do you, or do you take leaders within that parish to, like, how do you take the pulse of a parish in that survey?
Sorry, my internet cut out there for a second, so I'm glad we're using Riverside because it'll fill in for us. So ask your question again. How do we...
Like, on your survey, do you just survey some of the ministry leaders, or where do you capture that information to take that pulse?
So what we do is we break it down into 4 categories: clergy, staff, key volunteers, and parishioners. And so the more people they get to do the assessment, the more accurate snapshot they'll get of how healthy their parish is. Now, to be honest with you, a lot of times people do it at first, and the number one complaint we get is people don't understand the language. It's like, well, isn't it helpful that you know that now? That's right. We don't speak mission. Like, we don't even talk about being missional. And so a lot of the term, people don't know the difference between evangelization, discipleship, and fellowship. And so we use those words interchangeably in the church, and that's why we can't have intelligent conversations. But if we educate people on that and differentiate, now all of a sudden we can understand the primary purpose for each of the ministries. And so that's helpful. So we break it down into all 4 of those categories, Sean, so that, and we always say, if you have 25 or more people from your parish do the assessment, flip us a note and we'll compile that data for you and send it to you. So it'll help you make decisions. So parish pastoral councils can use it. Leadership teams can use it. One of the funnest examples I had recently was a parish. We have a whole diocese doing it right now, but this parish did it, and the pastor scored himself a B at the parish on every single possible factor, which was interesting. And then his leadership team and staff scored themselves a B on every single factor. However, the key leaders also scored themselves a B on every single category. And finally, Sean, the parishioners also scored a B on every single category. Never saw that before. It was hilarious. They had over 85 people do the assessment, and they all had the same perspective, which in one sense is good. They're in the same place, but they've been at renewal for probably about 8 years, which is awesome. And so it's like, that's cool. You're a B church, and it takes a lot of work to be a B church. That's still, making progress. But do you want to be an A? Like, do you want to be an A? You don't have to be, but do you want to be? And if you were, what kind of an impact would that have for the kingdom of God? And so we talked about it. And it was really beautiful because the pastor said, well, to be honest with you, I retire in 6 years, and I've been talking a lot about it. And I said, well, that's a good way to stay a B, because you'll never be an A if you're talking about retirement. And I said, I'm not casting any judgment on you, but I just hope you're doing what you're doing on purpose. And so it was Christmas time, and they went away and took a lovely break and came back. And I got a call from one of their leadership team members saying, I have some good news. Father walked into the first leadership team meeting after the holidays, And he said, I've been praying about this and discerning, and I want you guys to know I'm going out and a pastor, and this is going to be an A parish. And I need to know, are you willing to be an A team member? Because if so, we have to go on a journey of evolution. And I just thought, yes. And so that's what's so helpful with this assessment, is that it gives you a language, it gives you an assessment, and then if you fill that in with some great questions, and then we can really get to the heart of what's blocking and what's stopping people from getting better results, and then go and get them. And so it's a great tool. If anybody's interested, it's on our website, huntleyleadership.com. It's literally on the front page. You scroll down a bit, you can take the assessment for free. And but
That's
again, one of
awesome.
the things we find, Sean, in coaching is that most churches, they're not speaking the same language, and they don't have a framework, but they don't know they should have a framework, and they don't know that they're not using the same definition for churchy words, and we just try to help them do that. Yeah.
Well, in our pastor, like, we talked about the term disciple, right? Because
Mhm.
we were, we were, God Squad was playing around with a volunteer management system to support the parishes, right? Just to see
Nice.
how it would work. And, okay, you're not a volunteer when you're at the church, right?
Mm.
And a lot of people wanted to use the term disciple, but when you go talk to a guy and say, hey, can you help flip burgers, just sign up on become a disciple today, they're going, whoa, 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 I thought you just wanted me to flip burgers, right? and and because there's not an understanding of what that word is,
Mm.
especially in context of today. One of
Mm.
the board president for Catholic Men's Leadership Alliance, he goes, okay, how many think you're
Yeah.
a disciple? And a lot of people put up their hands. And okay, how many people are you discipling? And
Mm.
okay, then a lot of hands go down, and then he's going, well, you're not a disciple then, right? Like, it's a progress. And so how do we get to some of that common language? And that's where our pastor has set up 5 areas within our parish of communication. He
Mm.
started with the altar, all the ministries related to the altar, rather than all doing their own thing. He brings them leaders from each of those together to discuss and come up with how we're going to do it together. And then one, his vision, which he's implementing now, is one will be designated from that group and have a seat on parish council. And same with the other 4
Does
groups.
that get them time off from purgatory? How does that work?
Well, it's the flow of communication, so that there's information being fed to parish council about what's going on in
Mm-hmm.
the parish, and then the information from parish council can come back down to the groups and the group leaders, as it's setting up that we're working together. It's not
I
the
wonder.
God squad.
Yeah, I wonder if that's because there are different types of parish pastoral councils. You can
Yeah.
function as a parish pastoral council in multiple different ways, and so it's really important to understand how we're going to function and why, and is that the right function for the size of our church, and who we are, and how and what our structure is. And if it is, like, it's really important to be intentional, because one of the sound of that, like, if I had to sit in a meeting and find out with everybody around the table, everything that was going on in the church, I'd want to stick a fork in my eye. Like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of things going on in the church that I don't really want to know about, just because it's not my area of responsibility and influence. But again,
And
if that's the
that's
purpose of it, then that's fine. But
no, I think it's more like the purpose is information for your area. As it relates to the
mm.
mass, altar servers, we
Oh,
need you to do this, or choirs, or lectors, or so that we're all talking together
I
rather
totally
than.
get it.
So it's
So what's the
So
role of that person on parish pastoral council then? Like, why is that? So that's a representative body. So that parish pastoral council set up as a representative body. And so there'll be a
yeah,
representative from the altar people.
yeah,
And they'll come there for what purpose? To inform everybody else what they're doing at the altar, or what's the purpose?
that's my understanding. And that, so Father Fabio's got his doctorate in church management, so he's
Mm,
getting to play at, we're a large parish with 54 ministries when he
mm,
walked through the door in September. So, and when we're looking at parish renewal, uh, you were really encouraging, talking about a parish that's 8 years down the road, that you're still striving. So it's,
mm.
it doesn't feel like, if I don't get this right this year, it's, you know, it's done.
Yeah,
So
that man deserves a lot of grace, and he's a lot smarter than I am. So whatever he says, do that.
yeah, yeah. So it's and that's where, like God Squad, we're doing different things like event management, trying to help
Mm,
others. I was talking about the volunteer management, but just trying to support other missions or missionaries to do
mm,
their thing. So if we work together and try to create best practices and support one
mm,
another, so we're not all trying to figure out every component like you're talking about, stick a
mm,
fork in my eye because I don't want to hear about that. But if I know that I've got somebody that has taken the time, learned about that component, and will take care of it, then
mm.
I never have to worry about it, right? And if there is a concern
Theoretically.
with, theoretically, if they, hopefully they'll come to me, and that's where just opening up those lines of communication so we all know
Mm,
what each other's kind of doing. And I've been trying to do that at the diocesan level a bit, and
mm,
just trying to support working together, because and that's what we're
mm,
doing with Ministry to Men across North America, is trying
mm,
to encourage us to pull in the same direction. What's working,
mm,
what's best practices, how can we help? Here's how you
mm,
start a men's group, here's how you become a leader.
mm.
So those are some of the areas that we're honing in on, and I think we're very close to hitting the nail on the head, so that we're a missionaries versus getting that failing grade at the end.
Well, it sounds like you and the men that you work with have a real heart for the church, and to contribute and generously contribute to be a part of the solution. I'll tell you, that's a disposition and an attitude that leaders dream to work with, because sometimes it's hard to find people who have that disposition of, hey, whatever it takes, I want to help because I want us to be successful, and I'm willing to be a part of that. That's just a beautiful attitude. So good on you.
Thank you. Yeah,
Mm,
and that's why we're talking, right? Because it was through somebody deciding to organize an event to try and bring
yeah.
leaders together. How do we evangelize everybody in Canada by 2033? So let's meet and talk about it, right? So it's a bit, as one of my former board members used to, the big hairy audacious goal, right? So,
Yes.
and can we do it? Well, with God we can do anything.
It's funny. Sean, my wife and I, we're, we're relatively new to the church that we're at now in our community. And so we moved a number of years ago, and then of course we had COVID, and anyway, so we just switched up to this church up here, and so we started doing an alpha in our home, and it's great because I connected with this lady at the church and her husband, just wonderful people, and she's inviting some people too. That's awesome because I'm going to invite some people as well. And probably only want about 12 total, including team. And I asked 10 couples, that's equivalent of 20 people, and none of them said yes. And so when it comes to evangelizing everybody in Canada by 2033, I hope people have better luck than I do. I'm going to keep trying, but I'm not great at it. But
Well, so Dan Donaldson, who's our CEO of Heroic Men,
mm,
he talks about a guy invited him 7 times before he came to a small men's group.
right.
And it's when I worked with youth at risk, I called it time on target, because that's what we get taught when we're learning to
Mm,
shoot, right? Time on target. You need to focus and spend time in front of the target before you're going to hit it every time. And
right.
if we don't spend time building those relationships and investing,
Mm,
or building authentic brotherhood as we call it, how are you going to move them along that continuum,
mm,
uh, just with that authentic friendship or brotherhood? You
mm,
need to build it. And it's I was fairly successful working with youth at risk of falling into gangs, because I was I spent the time
mm.
and focused on building that relationship so that they could learn to trust. And so it does take a little time.
That's the principle right there, isn't it? Um, Yeah, that's what I realized too in my requests and asks is bold asks, but probably premature asks because we're relatively new to the neighborhood and I haven't spent a lot of time getting to know my neighbors. I wave every time anybody drives by my house, but I'm the one going out of my way to go say hi to my neighbors, but I really haven't invested a lot more than that. So to your point, going to spend more time this summer. We got the kids a bucket golf game for Christmas. Have you seen that? There's these wiffle balls about this big and this oversized club, and then you get these little vinyl buckets that you can throw anywhere, and you can make a course anywhere. So we thought maybe we'd do that in the neighborhood and invite people. We'll do a couples bucket golf tournament, and maybe start getting to know some people that way and have some laughs. And but you're right, we have to invest, and that takes time. And it's like, well, can't they just say yes to my request and we can get on with it? It's like, that's just such a bonehead way of thinking. But I catch myself being a bonehead regularly. And so I have to pull a Sean method and slow down, make the time and invest like you do, Sean. You're a champ at it. Good on you.
Well, to be fair, I got in my former line of work, uh, you got used to people not wanting to talk to you, and and not wanting you around, and even hating your existence. So
Mm,
it's you learn how to break through some of those barriers. We called it
right.
verbal judo, or stuff like that. But it's you need to learn how to talk to people too. Which it's interesting. My son came up. We were talking about something and on online and stuff, and he talked about people are sick of being connected. They're looking for connections. And
Mm,
pretty profound for a 26-year-old young man, right? Like
yeah.
it's so just trying to help them see you. It's you seeing them that was really hard for me at times, seeing the face of Christ in everyone
Mm.
that I met. Like, and I met some pretty interesting people, let's say, over the life of my 33 years in policing.
Mm.
So so it's hard to see sometimes.
Yeah, it's a grace. I can only imagine not to be jaded after spending so much time with people that are, not always making great choices and find themselves in situations where maybe violence or addictions are prevalent. That's a special grace that you've been given to still have the joy you have, and to be able to be in those situations and be light and salt. Like, good on you.
Well, and so, and on the other aspect that I use quite a bit is food. So we talk about dad's dish. Is there something that you make to help the
Yeah.
kids want to come to the dinner table?
Yeah, I married Nicole. She's the best cook in the planet. She is
There
so
you
good. It's great. I eat like an absolute king, and so does anybody who comes to our house. It is a great. I do like to be on the barbecue in the summer, though. I do get to do that. I love making a delicious steak on the barbecue and having some potatoes and some vegetables. That would be
go. Is
a
there
classic. I'm a meat and potatoes guy for sure. So if I'm left to my own, it's meat, potatoes, and vegetable. Usually, potatoes and carrots and maybe shake and bake chicken or something like. Keep it pretty simple. It's me, but
is
Nicole is.
there a
Yeah.
secret to making a great steak that you have?
Yeah, I think the secret for me is to go on YouTube and learn from other guys who are way better than I am. But this past summer, Sean, we had a killer steak. My wife's from Alberta, and so her favorite meal is always beef. And so I got these killer steaks from the butcher, and they were thick. And so it said to heat up the barbecue like 500 or something crazy, and then you put a rub on both sides of the steak, and then you like there was a very short amount of time that you put it on the bar, like maybe a oh gosh, how long was it? I forget, but it was super short. And then you flip it, and it was relatively short too. And I don't like my steak blue, and so I was really nervous, but I thought, no, I'm going to follow the directions. I followed the directions. We brought it in. You had to let it sit for another 5 minutes, and it was the juiciest, best steak we've ever had in our lives. It was
Yeah,
the first
yeah.
time I ever hit a home run. I'm inclined to burn things half to death if I don't follow directions. Yeah,
So that's one of the big secrets, especially when you're cooking beef or most meats,
yeah,
is that resting component. Uh,
right.
it's steaks 10 minutes. A brisket, I'll rest up to 4 hours. So
Wow.
after coming off the smoker, so it's
So you're a
and it's
champ.
amazing.
That's awesome. I need to hang out with
So
you. That's some good eating.
I
That-
I've done a little bit of competing and I've done okay with it. So
oh, no way. Oh
yeah,
wow. The
I've
only time I
competed at
smoke
our
is when I burn the toast or something like that's, I good on you.
so so we're doing a project called the Litany of Saint Joseph in Song, and
Okay.
just trying to honor Saint Joseph, patron of Canada, patron of ministry to men, patron of the Universal Church. Is is there a title of Saint Joseph or something about Saint Joseph that resonates with you?
Yeah. My quick answer is no. Um, the my when I think about Joseph, I think about a strong man who was silent and powerful. I thought I was a super strong guy. I used to work out a lot, and my uncle was a carpenter, and I could beat anybody in an arm wrestle. I don't know why. I'm not a very big guy, but I was very good at arm wrestling. And I arm wrestled him, and he almost flipped me on my head. He beat me so fast, so he didn't even know I was there. And I couldn't believe it. I didn't realize how strong he was because he's always swinging hammers and tools. And so when I think about Saint Joseph, you don't hear a lot about him in Scripture, but I bet you he was one strong man, not only physically but in principle. And so I always love thinking about how he would have loved Mary and Joseph or and Jesus. It's but I don't have
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of devotions. I'm not as devotional as other Catholics are, I find, but I certainly I appreciate people's
Well, if you
devotion.
get
How
a
that.
chance,
Mm.
have a look at the poster on our website
Mhm.
under Premier. So at godsquad.ca under and the tab Premier, and the image was a picture that we had taken in Wichita, Kansas. We went and saw these life-size sculptures of Mary and Joseph, and it's the most manly Joseph, as you're describing, that I've ever seen. So I don't know if you know, but the term for whiskey in Gaelic is Ishkabaha, which means water of life. And I pray that you continue to lead many souls to the true water of life in your ministry. And thank you for joining us in the pub today, Ron.
You're welcome, Sean. It's great to be with you. I appreciate the invitation, and I really appreciate the work you do with God Squad, the work you do in your parish and diocese. It's people like you that make the church great. So God bless you and keep up the great work.
Thanks, Ron. I hope you have enjoyed this episode of A Dram with Friends. Like and subscribe. Go to all podcast platforms to look for it on podcast, or go to godsquad.ca to support our mission.